you expecting them to be this good at the beginning of the year? Because they're a pretty well-rounded team. And if you see a flaw in the Eagles in terms of being, even though they're 10-1 right now, what do you think it would be their biggest issue?
Oh boy. I did expect them to perform better than the year prior. I don't know how of a hot start they would have, but I think I wanted them to succeed. They certainly have. It's because of the offseason that they had a lot of pieces. Obviously, you talk about Howie Roseman fleecing people sometimes. They've got a lot of talent. If there was a hole on the team right now, it would be just the injury because they've been fairly healthy overall. The biggest one is Chauncey, the safety. I think the safety issue is a little bit tough. I mean, Reed Blankenship looked great, picking up Aaron Rodgers, all that. But I think safety is kind of a big issue. Cornerbacks just pretty solid in Bradbury Slay. That's top tier. Linebackers are pretty good right now, serviceable, and Jordan Davis is coming back. So the whole D-line is like really good. In terms of a whole safety offense, I don't really see an issue unless somebody gets injured. That's it. They've been really healthy, and that's kind of the tale every year is staying healthy, and that kind of puts them in the playoff run and sometimes the Super Bowl.
I think the MVP of the league is Jalen Hurts, and I think he's been fantastic. For everybody that was throwing him under the bus, saying that, the Eagles have 2 first-round draft picks this year. They're giving up on him. If this guy doesn't show up this year, they're going to walk away from him, and they're going to move up and get the quarterback of their pickings. And by the way, they have a pretty high pick this year because they have the Saints pick, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So they have a chance to get possibly right now, if the season were to end, I think the Saints are picking at 6 or 7, which like they could get a quarterback at 6 or 7. And if they want to take their other first round draft pick and move up even faster, they can get any quarterback they really want. So I think Jalen Hurts is the guy. This team is only going to get better in the offseason with the draft stock that they have. I mean, it's ridiculous where this team is going, and they have arguably the coach of the year. They have the GM of the year. I mean, they're having a sensational year. They deserve all the credit, and I give a lot of respect to Rosen and what he has done over the last couple of years rebuilding. And thank you, Mr. Rosen, for such a great GM in, yes, our GM, Mr. Douglas. So I am not upset right now for both my teams. We're very well run from the GM to the coach area. So
you could thank him for Herbig too.
Yes. By the way, thank you for giving us Herbig, who is one of the more efficient guards right now in the NFL. So, and he's going to make a lot of money in the offseason. Maybe not from the Jets, but somebody is going to pay him a lot of money for the season that he's having. It's been sensational for the New York Jets. As everybody knows, we are talking to NFL Network's newsroom ticker operator and writer Brendan Walker. You look at this season, there's so many highs and a lot of lows. And teams that we thought were going to be good, the Raiders, oh my God, they've been horrible. The Broncos, I mean, you have a quarterback that doesn't know where the hell he is anymore. I guess he feels that his ass right now is in Seattle and his body's over there in Denver. I don't know what he's thinking. He's getting yelled at by his defensive players. He just got a $250 million contract. He's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL and just an absolute bust right now. The Broncos are probably praying and wishing that they didn't make that trade because right now they're put in salary cap hell. They have no future. I mean, and Seattle's just laughing to the bank. We got Geno Smith. We now have an efficient offensive line. Next year, we have the Broncos' first-round draft pick, which is probably going to be number 3 or number 2.
Oh, Will Anderson's headed to the Seahawks.
We're flying in a great position. So, I mean, who's really upset right now? It's definitely not Seattle. What has been the craziest part of this year in your eyes so far for all the highs and the lows of the league?
Well, Russell Wilson's certainly up there. That's terrible. The Raiders are a huge disappointment because on paper, we thought the AFC West was going to be amazing. Every team was going to be amazing, so that goes along with them. Never seen quite the downfall of the Rams, a team that won the Super Bowl, and as talented as they were, I have never seen a team crumble and fizzle out so bad. Same thing as the Broncos. No future. They put all the eggs into the basket, and they have no future. They have no pick. It's gone to the Lions, and the team is riddled with injury. You got every star player injured. You got Aaron Donald now out this week. You got Matthew Stafford, who's been dealing with this concussion issue, and you have Cooper Kupp, who's been out. And it's just, you have all your star players out. Okay, well, now your team is trash because you have no star players. And they're second to last, I think I'm looking at here, the playoff picture, the second to last in the NFC. And I would say the Bears are better than them right now. They should be last. It's like I've never seen a team look as bad as they are after the Super Bowl than this team. It might be one of the worst disappointments post Super Bowl. Quite the hangover.
Yeah, it would be the first one since the Buccaneers after they won in 2003 that would finish under 500 if they were to finish under 500.
I will tell you this: if this happens again next year, I don't care if they won a Super Bowl, a year ago or 2 years ago. Sean McVay is going to be looking for another job because you can't trade away all those pieces and your future and only win one Super Bowl.
He might just step down himself at this point.
I mean, honestly, it's ever since Odell Beckham got hurt and he is no longer playing for this team, they haven't been the same. When Odell Beckham went at the end of the season at the trade deadline, they were a different team. They really were a different explosive team. And now that Odell Beckham is trying to figure out where he wants to go, and the Rams were one of those teams that really stood out. Everybody thought that's where he was going back to. The Rams are not a playoff team. Matthew Stafford hasn't been – I think Matthew Stafford wasn't 100% healthy all season long. And you're going to probably hear at the end of the season he's going in for shoulder surgery or arm surgery. He has not been 100% because if Matthew Stafford was 100%, he would be throwing 4,000 yards. It doesn't matter who's the wide receiver. Matthew Stafford is one of the more talented arm quarterbacks in the NFL. And the fact that he has only thrown, 26 or 2,700 yards in a full season, that is alarming. And I think it had a lot to do with his arm strength. So I feel bad for Matt. This is a guy that deserves a lot of credit for what he did last year. And really coming home to the Rams, he obviously is going to be a free agent this year. The Rams are going to have to figure out what they're going to do with him. Are they going to sign him, or are they going to look elsewhere in free agency? You have Derek Carr that could be available. You have Aaron Rodgers that very much could be available with one more year left on that contract. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Raiders, by the way. I really do.
The Rams have to trade their first-round pick in 2028 or so.
Yeah. And
trying to do that.
Jimmy Garoppolo could be available. There is Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of quality quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks that could be available this offseason, and it'll be very interesting to see where some of these teams go, including the Jets, if Mike White isn't the answer and it isn't Zach Wilson. I don't believe the Jets are going to draft again. I don't think they're going to be that stupid. So I think what they have right now is they're in position to win now, and they have a very good young team. Bringing in a veteran quarterback with a good young group like this, or a good young group in Oakland or something. I'm sorry, not Oakland, Vegas. Maybe they're a contender. So it's going to be very, very crazy in the offseason and in the draft positions that a lot of these teams are. So it's very interesting. As everybody knows, we are talking to NFL Network, newsroom ticker and operator and writer, Brendan Walker. Last question for me, Brendan.
Yeah.
You look at the league and you look at the dominance of Kansas City and what they have done over the last couple of years, and Patrick Mahomes, who he is as a quarterback, what he stands for, and really the face right now of the NFL. Do you really believe that this Kansas City Chiefs team is a Super Bowl contender? Honestly, when you look at top to bottom, is this the best Kansas City team you've seen? And do you think, with all the craziness that's going on in the AFC, do you really think that this team is now, being that they're the number one favorites, the Super Bowl contending champion?
The way you're phrasing it makes me think you don't like this team a lot.
I think they're very overrated. I really do. I really do. Travis Kelce is a beast right now. I mean, you can't stop this guy. This guy, and by the way, you have arguably the best center in the NFL and his brother. I mean, these two guys are just behemoths. These guys are great. They're fantastic to watch. But honestly, I think they're highly overrated, okay? I do. I'm not them, but I think the Kansas City Chiefs are highly overrated as a team. Patrick Mahomes is fantastic. We've seen teams like the Buffalo Bills get in his head, and when you do that, you could throw him off his mark, and he's not as dominant and he's not as great of a thrower when he gets into a pressure situation. I don't think this offensive line is as good as everybody thinks it is. And when they play one of these young defenses, maybe the Jets or one of these other teams that they haven't seen this year that can get at you up with 4 and play man-to-man coverage, they're going to have a lot of problems against those teams. So do you think that this team is for real?
Well, now I might have to change my answer now. I definitely at the beginning was like right now, like maybe a couple weeks back, I was looking at the Eagles and Chiefs. I was like, oh, yeah, it's possible Super Bowl matchup. I was like, yeah, if we played the Chiefs right now, I don't know if we could beat them because the offense was looking good. They were putting up 45 points. You know, Eagles kind of bend, don't break, but they've given up points to some teams, even a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers, so like half the game. So, you know what I mean? They're looking good at some point. Very interested to see this next game coming up this week, week 13 with the Bengals and Chiefs, because Bengals record is not indicative of how good the team is. I think they just had a slow start. And last year, the Bengals actually beat them in the regular season. So I actually am high on the Bills. Not Bills. Bengals currently. I know Bills are up there. I think the Chiefs are one of the top teams for sure in the AFC. But I think that the NFL is very top heavy on the NFC side versus the AFC. I think the AFC is still kind of any team could kind of win. It's just a whole bunch of like mishmash versus the NFC where it's like boom, 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 great defense, great, you know, it's stuff like that. Do I go against what you say and say that the Chiefs are legit? I think they're legit for their AFC division conference. But maybe not overall. And now that I'm thinking about it, now that you're saying some stuff, maybe not. Maybe not.
I'm looking at them as a full package, and they have to me, he's been as good a quarterback as anybody in the league this year, but they don't have the weapon. They don't have Tyreek Hill. And teams already know. Travis Kelce, if you could stop Travis Kelce or even contain him to 1 touchdown a game, you have to have Scantling try to beat you, Juju try to beat you. These names are not names that really stand out to you anymore. It really is. Juju isn't the same player he was for the 2 or 3 years he was with the Steelers when he was a top player and a top route runner. And Scantling, give me a break, okay? Or what is it, Hardman or whatever the hell his name is. These guys aren't the big superstar players that we remember with Tyreek Hill. So honestly, I think that this team is beatable. As the Buffalo Bills showed you that they can beat them, and I don't think that they're as good as they were when they won the Super Bowl. I really don't. I think this is one of the worst Kansas City Chiefs teams we've seen. So as good as their record shows them, who have they beaten this year? Okay, and look at who they're playing. Besides the Bengals, are you going to tell me any of the other teams that they have to play are any good? They have the easiest schedule for the last 4 games of the season in the whole NFL. So, yeah, they're going to be the number 1 seed. Does that mean that they're going to beat one of those top AFC teams when they meet them in the playoffs? The answer is no. Andy Reid is the best coach out of all of them. I really do. I think he's a great offensive mind. He's a good trickster when it comes to the big game. I still believe, and you know Andy Reid very well because you're a Philadelphia fan, but I can't sit here today and say, hey, you know what? I think Kansas City's going all the way. I think they're wonderful. I want to kiss their you-know-what. You know what I want to do? I want to see them go down in flames because, honestly, I think they're highly overrated. So that's my thoughts to the whole thing. Speedy?
My last question is, for your Eagles, who do you fear most in the playoffs in the NFC?
In the NFC, this one might be a little crazy to hear, but this would be between the 49ers and the Cowboys right now. I think they could beat the Cowboys in the regular season, but then come playoff time, it's kind of a little different. You never know in the playoffs.
Brandon,
No.
Stop
you never know.
Stop
Divisional games in the playoffs. You never know what can happen.
You want me to throw up? The Cowboys aren't beating them. I'm sorry. I don't care how good Micah Parsons is in this defense, which their secondary is highly overrated. The Cowboys secondary isn't. Diggs is a not a make or break corner. Okay, he loves to try to find the pick. And if he doesn't, pick the ball off, he's not the same corner. The corners don't even match up. The secondary of the Eagles don't match up to the Cowboys because they're so much better, the Eagles. There's nothing the 49ers are the only team that really should scare you in the whole NFC.